Good morning, dear students. Today we are going to continue with our session 4. In this, you will be learning epidemiological methods. Now, today's contents will be classification of epidemiological methods, descriptive epidemiology, and then advantages, limitations of descriptive epidemiology, uses of descriptive epidemiology. Let us go with the recap. So, in the previous sessions, 3 sessions, what you have learned was a definition of epidemiology, aims of epidemiology, principles, objectives and uses of epidemiology, components of epidemiology, epidemiological approach, epidemiological triad, and you have learned the differences between clinical approach and epidemiological approach, then tools of measurement and measurement of mortality and morbidity. So today we will be starting with our classification of epidemiological methods. Now, epidemiological studies are broadly classified as observational studies and experimental studies. Now, in observational studies, the first one is descriptive studies, followed by analytical studies. In analytical studies, we have something called as ecological studies, cross-sectional studies, or we call it as prevalence studies, then case control studies and cohort studies. Now, if you observe the slide, you can see analytical studies. In this first one is ecological studies. In ecological studies, population is the unit of study. That means you are concerned with the whole population. In cross-sectional studies, you are concerned with individuals as a unit of study. And case control and cohort also similarly with individuals as unit of study. The second one is experimental studies, otherwise intervention studies. In experimental studies, we have 3 types again: randomized control trials or clinical trials. Here, patients are the unit of study. The second one is field trials. Here, healthy people are unit of study. And community trials with communities as unit of study. So let us see descriptive epidemiology. Now, descriptive epidemiology is the first type of observational studies. In this descriptive epidemiology, we don't intervene in the process of disease. What we do is we observe and we allow the nature take its own course. It is limited to the description of occurrence of the disease in a population, usually considered as a first phase of epidemiological investigation. Now, observing the distribution of the disease in this human population and mainly identifying the characteristics or the features or clinical features, we call it, where and how this disease is associated with, is what we are mainly looking in the descriptive epidemiology. So, coming to steps in descriptive epidemiology. First one is defining the population to be studied, defining the disease under study, describing the disease by time, place and person, measurement of disease, comparing with known indices. The last one, formulation of etiologic hypothesis. So the first one is defining the population. Now, defining the population is the first step. What we do, we define the population base, because we need to get the total number of the population whom we are studying. And it not only the population number, at the same time we will be looking at the demographic features or demographic characteristics of the population, that is age, sex, occupation, cultural background. All the similar information needed for the study is collected or is defined in this defined population. Now, this defined population can be a whole population or in any geographical area. More often, it can be a representative sample taken from either it can be schools or any particular occupation or any factory workers or any hospital patients, etc. Now, this defined population needs to be large enough so that whatever the information you are collecting has some meaningful results. Now, the concept of defined population is very crucial for an epidemiological studies. It provides the denominator for calculating the rates which are essential to measure the disease frequency and study its distribution and determinants of that particular disease. Understand, I hope you all. Denominator. This is where we are all concerned of. Without denominator, the numerator has very little meaning. So that is defining the population. The second one is defining the disease under study. Once the population to be studied is defined, the next step is you have to define the disease or a condition being investigated. So defining the disease under study is very important, especially in epidemiological perspective, because for a clinician it might not be very much required, because even if there is some misunderstanding about the definition of the disease, or if there is any wrong in the diagnosis, he can always revert back and change the course of treatment. Whereas in an epidemiological point of view, it is very difficult. You cannot go back. Now let us see why. Because the definition of that disease in a population needs to be both precise and valid to enable him to identify those who have the disease from those who do not have the disease. Now I'll give an example here. If you see the coronavirus cases today, you have lots of clinical features. They talk about cold, because it can get misunderstood along with the coronavirus, cold, flu, or other seasonal allergies. They talk about fever, fatigue, cough, sneezing, all these things in all the features. But we have very clearly known that coronavirus will have very clear-cut common fever and fatigue, cough, usually dry cough, and aches and pains are sometimes, and there is no sneezing in coronavirus. Or you can say even sore throat is very rare, sometimes only. And running nose is very rare. Headaches are sometimes. Whereas if you see similarly in cold, fever is rare, but fatigue is sometimes. Cough is mild, sneezing is common, aches and pains are common. So you have to have a clear-cut definition of the disease what you are going to measure in the population. And at the same time, an epidemiologist looks out for an operational definition. Operational definition is what we need to measure in the population so that it is easy to understand. Like a definition by which a disease or a condition can be identified and measured in a defined population with a degree of accuracy. See, it has to be operational in the field so that the disease frequency and disease can be identified in the population easily and accurately. Now after this, we go to the describing the disease. The primary objective of descriptive epidemiology is to describe the occurrence and distribution of disease by time, place and person, and identifying these characteristics, whether it is present or absent in those population or in those individuals with disease. So describing the disease is a primary objective. Now I have given you one slide here where we describe the disease in relation to time, place and person. Today we will deal with the time distribution. The first one is, in this time distribution you have short-term fluctuations, periodic fluctuations and long-term secular trends or long-term fluctuations. Now in the short-term fluctuations, first one is common source epidemic, second is propagated epidemic and third is mixed epidemic. In common source, we have something called a single exposure, multiple exposure. Propagated epidemic, we have person-to-person, arthropod, animal reservoir, and mixed epidemic. The second one is periodic fluctuations. In this, you have seasonal and cyclical trends. And third one, that's the last one, is long-term trends. Let us see the first one, short-term fluctuations. In this short-term fluctuations, what we see is called as epidemic. Now, this is what you all should pay attention. You should know, because now what we are all suffering, what we are all experiencing is this coronavirus epidemic. And now I will tell you how it is going to become beyond epidemic. Now the best known short-term fluctuation in the occurrence of disease is epidemic. Now what is the definition of this epidemic? The occurrence of any disease or any illness in a particular community beyond expectation or beyond normal expectation. See, suppose if you say there are some cold cases which are happening in few hundreds or thousands, which is not rare or which is not unexpected. But if it is going to happen more than lakhs immediately, or some more large population is expected is happening that particular thing within a short span of time, and where many people are suffering, it is not something which we can expect. So epidemic is where occurrence in a community or region of cases of an illness or other health related events clearly in excess of normal expectancy. Now coming to the first one is common source epidemic. Here if you see common source, that is single exposure epidemic. Here all these problems will happen in one incubation period. So for example, I have given you as food poisoning, where contaminated foodstuff result in outbreak of food poisoning in those people who have consumed it from a single source. So we call it as single source epidemic. The common source epidemics need not be always due to any infectious agent. It can be because of any incident also, like Bhopal gas tragedy, or we call it as Bhopal disaster that happened in 1984. Where because of environmental population we have seen many people suffering. Even today there are many people who are having the side effects of that exposure. Now in this single source, that is point source epidemic, if you see the epidemic curve, there is a sharp rise and it tails off very gradually and long duration. Now coming to the common source epidemic, that is continuous or multiple exposure. For this, the example here is when you are exposed to that particular source for many times. That means you are consuming from the same source. For example, I have given you as a well water which is contaminated, and prolonged usage of that contaminated water will give rise to the same cases for a long period of time. Now if you see the next one is propagated epidemics. In this propagated epidemics, it is most oftenly happen from person to person. What we are seeing is today epidemic of coronavirus. Now this usually have, in this particular one, propagated epidemics, we have show a gradual rise and tails off over a much longer period. It rises gradually and it tails off over a long period of time. Usually it is a vector-borne diseases where you can see these mosquitoes bite or other things, sandflies can happen, or it can be animal-borne diseases like in case of HIV, AIDS, SARS, Corona, all thought of having been emerged from the animal hosts. If you see a course of a typical propagated epidemic, I have given you the graph, please look carefully. Initial period of epidemic. Here you can see down susceptible population, immune population, infected person who infects others, and infected person who fails to infect others. If you see that in the initial period of time how it spreads, now height of epidemic, how it spreads, and then termination of epidemic. Please go through this picture clearly, you can understand that. Now coming to the mixed epidemics. Now the pattern of common source of epidemic always, these mixed epidemics are combination of two things, where the outbreak followed by a secondary contamination is not uncommon. So for example, I have given you here as a common source epidemic of shigellosis occurred among 3,000 women who attended the music festival. Now after that, many people have developed symptoms when they returned to their homes. But over the next few weeks, there are many cases where these Shigella cases have increased from person to person. So that means it happened from person. First it happened because of some infection, and second it has followed from person to person. This is called as mixed epidemics. Now the next one is periodic fluctuations. Seasonal trends. Seasonal variation is well known because usually we can see certain diseases happening in cold or in winter or any particular times. If you see example measles, varicella, cerebrospinal meningitis, upper respiratory tract infections, malaria, where measles usually seen high in the early spring and respiratory infections are seen during winter months. So like this we have periodic fluctuations where that is called as seasonal trend. Now if we see the cyclical trend, in this cyclic trend, some diseases occur in cycles, like some over short periods of time, which may be days or weeks. I've given an example here as pre-vaccination era. The cycles used to happen 2 to 3 years, or rubella every 6 to 9 years. Whereas non-infectious disease also, non-infectious conditions also can cause cyclic trends. For example, you can experience lot of automobile accidents in the weekends, especially Saturdays. The last one is long-term or secular trends. The term secular implies to changes in the occurrence of disease, a progressive increase or decrease over a long period of time, generally several years or decades. Examples of long-term or secular trends, we call it as coronary heart disease, lung cancer and diabetes, which have shown a consistent upward trend in the developed countries during the past 50 years or so, followed by a decline in such other diseases like tuberculosis, typhoid, diphtheria and polio. So these are all what we can see in today's session till long-term secular trends. Now, I hope you all understood what is epidemic. Before closing this session, I would ask you all to read once again from Park textbook, and I would tell you, you all must have heard a word called pandemic today, because coronavirus is not anymore epidemic. People are calling it as pandemic. Why it is called pandemic? What is the difference between epidemic and pandemic? Epidemic is happening because, when we call this epidemic, when it is limited to one particular place or one particular population or one particular geographic area. But when this spread is happening in wide area, and when it is spreading to many countries, or when it is happening over many continents, we call this as pandemic. So an epidemic happening in many areas, when in large continents or in more continents in the world, it becomes pandemic. So today coronavirus is a pandemic. So with that, we will close this session, and I hope you all read from the textbook once again. Tomorrow we will continue with the rest of it. Thank you.